Chapter 1926. An Emperor Shielding Shortcomings 5. As he saw that Qi Ling was silent, Qi Bei's tone softened. Lauer, there are many women in this world, and since your little brother fancies her, so what if you give her to him? She ought to head over to Lao San's place and receive punishment. It was only a woman, and they could have as many as they want. Why was there a need for Lauer to bully his biological brother for a woman? Qi Ling sneered. Woman? Then did you know the woman you're speaking of was uninjured even after killing a heavenly god-level cultivator from the Luo Feng kingdom? Throughout the entire hall, everyone sucked in cold air after hearing Qi Ling's words. Based on their knowledge, it was a young woman around 20 years old that injured the third prince. To possess the strength to defeat a heavenly god cultivator at such an age, exactly how terrifying was she? The woman you speak of is capable of making Qi Su obey her and is also the owner of the spirit-gathering medicine hall. The Qi family's Qi Ling couldn't cultivate from when she was young, and it was also this woman who you disdained that used her superb medical skills to cure her. Perhaps you don't know who is Qi Ling. However, the emperor of the Luo Feng kingdom was seriously ill a while back and everyone was helpless to cure his illness. I'm sure you know of this. Coincidentally, she was also the one who cured Mu Zhenchen. Qi Ling couldn't understand the reasons why his imperial father looked down on women. Doesn't he know that the woman he holds in contempt has terrifying power? You want to deal with her? Fine. The Luo Feng kingdom's emperor regards her as his benefactor, and if you harmed her in the slightest, I presume that it would incur a war between two kingdoms if this were to be found out by them. Frankly speaking, Qi Ling also wanted to say something like this. Please take a look at the Luo Feng kingdom's emperor and then reflect on yourself. Are you even a tenth of the Luo Feng kingdom's wise emperor? Qi Bei's expression turned extremely unsightly. He never expected young Luo Feng to have such a powerful background. Just the thought of a war between the two kingdoms caused him to turn timid. Your Majesty, the beautiful lady in brocade clothing pouted as pea-sized tears flowed down, arousing pity from a man. My beloved consort, be at ease. I will compensate Lao San well. This time, Qi Bei no longer mentioned punishing young Luo Feng. Imperial Father, I have something else to discuss with you. Qi Ling slightly looked up and said, it's regarding the Four Kingdom tournament in a few months. Your son wishes to bring forth men to participate. Qi Bei's face faintly changed. In truth, he only wanted to have the third prince head to the tournament. Furthermore, due to the state preceptor's previous words, he was confident of the third prince's victory. Therefore, hearing Qi Ling's request right now, he merely brushed him off casually. It's sufficient to have your third brother head there. You don't have to waste your time. In any case, you wouldn't be able to obtain victory. Imperial Father, there are no rules on the participating numbers nor rules that a kingdom can only dispatch a single team. At that time, I'll sign up separately from third brother and it won't cause any losses. In normal situations, a kingdom would dispatch several teams to vie for victory. If they were unlucky, perhaps their kingdom's teams would encounter each other during the match and had to choose one or the other. Vice versa, if they were lucky, at least one team would win among so many teams, wasn't it so? Your Majesty, your humble servant finds the second prince's words to be reasonable. Various officials successively stood up in agreement. In any case, our Tianqi kingdom wouldn't make a loss regardless of how many teams we send out. Isn't that right? That's right, Your Majesty. Let's have the second prince head over, and no matter which prince obtains victory, it'd be our Tianqi kingdom's good fortune. Chapter 1927. An Emperor Shielding Shortcomings 6. Looking at the various officials all in consensus, it wasn't appropriate for Qi Bei to be unyielding. He could only stiffen his face as he spoke. Since it's so, Lauer, I shall allow you to bring troops to participate. I hope you won't disappoint me or be a drag on your little brother's feet. Drag on his feet. Qi Ling chuckled in contempt. With that trash having had his body emptied by wine and women, he'll probably be made into mincemeat the instant he takes the stage. He truly couldn't understand where his imperial fathers had the confidence to believe that the trash would obtain victory. Just relying on those wise words from the state preceptor. Even if Lao San truly had the potential, he has thoroughly become a piece of mud after numerous years of indulgence and pampering by imperial father. If there's nothing else, the assembly shall be dismissed. Qi Bei's voice was as cold and solemn as he spoke expressionlessly. Long live your majesty. All the officials knelt down and respectfully sent Qi Bei away. They only stood up and walked out the golden imperial palace hall after Qi Bei left. Somewhere in a courtyard as beautiful as a mural, a man stood erect under the wind on an artificial stone hill. His long black robes radiated a grim aura while a trace of emotion gradually surfaced on his expressionless face, seemingly recalling something. This emotion was fleeting and he recovered his ice-cold expression soon after. Suddenly, upon hearing footsteps behind him, he swiftly took out a mask and covered his heaven-shocking appearance. My lord, a man dressed in robes with dragon prints appeared and his face revealed respect as he spoke in an extremely deferential manner. The man answered with his muffled voice, the person I tasked you to find, how is it going? My lord, I've already dispatched the imperial family's experts to search for her. I estimate we'll have news very soon. Looking at the man standing before him, the yellow-robed man vaguely recalled the scene of this man's first appearance. He was similar to a god that descended from the skies, unfeeling and noble, and extremely powerful. In particular, this man's tone was extremely overbearing as he claimed to subdue his entire kingdom the moment he spoke. His overbearing tone angered two experts of the imperial family and resulted in a battle. However, that battle did not continue for long. The imperial family's experts had been defeated under everyone's watchful gaze, while this man still looked unfeeling and noble, similar to how he first appeared. His hair wasn't messed up in the slightest, as if the fight from before was as simple as waving his hands. It was also from that day that I, as the emperor seated up high above, had fallen to become his servant. Thinking of this, the yellow-robed man had an urge to cry. However, he didn't dare to reveal his discontent before this man. I'll give you 3 days. Find her within 3 days. Otherwise, there's no need for your Xiu kingdom to continue existing. The man's voice was unfeeling and ruthless, similar to a heavy hammer that fiercely rammed against the emperor's heart, causing him to faintly shudder. Yes, my lord, I'll dispatch more men to search for her. The Xiu kingdom's emperor suppressed his urge to cry and cupped his fists respectfully. After that, he staggered as he turned, while hastily leaving the courtyard. After his departure, the man took off his mask and revealed his handsome appearance. Fenger, wait for me. I will head to your side in a short while. Under the azure skies, the woman's peerless figure seemed to have appeared, causing his callous eyes to gradually soften. Chapter 1928. The Ghost Emperor is Ugly. 1. Xiu Kingdom. Within the imperial palace, the dragon-robed man flung his long sleeves as he slowly walked into the woman's chamber. At this moment, sounds of amusement could be heard, causing his brows to be tightly furrowed. Seeing the dragon-robed man walking over, the palace maids turned pale with fright as they hastily knelt in a row and spoke together. Your servant pays their respects to your majesty. Hearing the palace maids' voices caused a certain young lady who was laughing to stop. Looking at the dragon-robed man walking over with haste, she wittily stuck out her tongue. Imperial father, why have you come? The young lady was very beautiful while her eyes revealed cleverness. Even so, it couldn't conceal her inherent pride. Fenger. The dragon-robed man's expression sank. After waving his hands for everyone present to retreat, he then spoke with a grave tone, you're here again to cause trouble together with those group of palace maids and eunuchs. If you have the mood to play, why don't you go and learn about etiquette? That way I can gift you to the Ghost Emperor. Imperial father. Xiao Yefeng's expression completely changed. Your daughter doesn't want to marry the Ghost Emperor. He's so ugly and he doesn't deserve to marry me. The dragon-robed man suddenly turned chilly. What nonsense are you saying? Where did you hear that the Ghost Emperor is ugly? Xiao Yefeng snorted, as her voice contained disdain. If he weren't ugly, why the need to wear a mask? Even so, with the Ghost Emperor's strength, it's more than sufficient to match up to you. The dragon-robed man swept a glance at Xiao Yefeng. Frankly speaking, the Ghost Emperor tasked me to find a woman and she definitely doesn't have a simple relationship with him. I hadn't thought of letting you be his wife and from the start, I intended to gift you to him as a concubine. With a whoosh, Xiao Yefeng's expression turned incomparably pale and she even somewhat staggered. Looking at her father who pampered her to the extreme in the past, her face revealed disbelief. Why? Why is father gifting me to become his concubine? What right does a man who doesn't even dare to show his face to others have, to take me as a concubine? Imperial Father, was it the Ghost Emperor who sent you here? Xiao Yefeng recovered her emotions very soon and clenched her teeth. Tell him, in his dreams, I will never marry an ugly man. Looking at Xiao Yefeng's appearance of rather dying than submitting, the dragon-robed man's expression turned chilly. Let me tell you, this matter is beyond your opinion. Men, take the princess into custody, and without my orders, she's not allowed to take a step outside. Hearing his words, 2 imperial bodyguards went up, with intentions of dragging Xiao Yefeng away. Xiao Yefeng struggled with all her might as her face appeared to be flushed red. Imperial Father, not to mention being his concubine, I wouldn't agree even if I could become his wife. Tell him to give up. Seemingly not hearing Xiao Yefeng's words, the dragon-robed man coldly looked at the guards dragging her away. From afar, Xiao Yefeng's furious voice could be heard. Ghost Emperor, you this bastard who dares to peep on this princess, both of us cannot coexist together. With your ugly appearance, don't even think of. Oomph. The dragon-robed man was evidently frightened by Xiao Yefeng's words, and before she spoke more unforgivable words, he directly tasked the guard to cover her mouth. At this very moment, a layer of cold sweat emerged on his forehead. Fortunately, the Ghost Emperor didn't reside in the Imperial Palace. Otherwise, the entire Xiyu kingdom would be consigned to eternal damnation if he heard her. Whereas for Xiao Yefeng, she firmly believed that the Ghost Emperor had looked upon her beautiful appearance and ordered her Imperial Father to force her. Otherwise, why would her Imperial Father raise the issue of making her become his concubine for no reason? Chapter 1929. The Ghost Emperor is ugly. 2. Even if the Ghost Emperor was powerful, she would never fancy an ugly man. Unfortunately, Xiao Yefeng was incapable of resisting, as the guards directly dragged her back to her room and locked her up. She swept the teacups on the table in a rage as her chest undulated. That Ghost Emperor is a bastard. I wonder where he had the guts to peep on me. In any case, I'm the Xiyu Kingdom's #1 beauty, so how can an ugly man match me? Princess, a palace maid on one side prudently glanced at Xiao Yefeng. After the Ghost Emperor arrived in the Xiyu Kingdom, he had tasked your majesty to search for a woman. Therefore, according to my opinion, that woman must be the Ghost Emperor's lover, and perhaps it was your majesty's own initiative to have princess. Even though Xiao Yefeng was unruly and headstrong, she did not humiliate the servants. As such, this palace maid had the courage to say such words before Xiao Yefeng. Tisk, Xiao Yefeng released a sneer as her eyes were filled with disdain. How beautiful do you think an ugly man's woman can be? Can she be compared to me? When the Ghost Emperor was battling with the 2 experts, I was also present. He must have taken a fancy on me back then. Xiao Yefeng gnashed her teeth in hatred. If he has the capability, he should use normal methods to chase me. To actually force Imperial Father to coerce me. The more he acts like this, the more I am disgusted. The palace maid lowered her head and no longer spoke. She felt that a powerful man that could cause others to fear would not be as what the princess described, falling in love with the princess at first sight. Furthermore, that kind of man would definitely disdain to force a woman by using his power. Xiao Yefeng took a deep breath. Furthermore, the man that I would take a liking to must not only be strong, his appearance must also be matchless. The Ghost Emperor is undeserving of me. However, your majesty, the palace maid carefully spoke, but before she managed to finish, she had been interrupted by Xiao Yefeng's fierce voice. In his dreams, I will never yield. The palace maid once again lowered her head. She felt that the emperor wouldn't easily give up. Meanwhile, within the study room, the dragon-robed man held a book in his hands while a gorgeous woman in brocade clothing was currently pouring a cup of tea for him. My empress, Xiao Yun sighed, go back and persuade Fenger. If she could marry the Ghost Emperor as his concubine, then he would stay in our Xiyu kingdom forever. The empress was stunned for a moment. Fenger has always been very prideful, and it'll be hard for her to accept being someone's concubine. Furthermore, will the Ghost Emperor agree to this? I'm afraid that it'll infuriate that man by gifting him a concubine. Xiao Yun chuckled. Isn't it normal for a man to have wives and concubines? In particular, a powerful man like the Ghost Emperor cannot have just one woman. By giving him a concubine, he would only be thankful, and how could he get angry? However, the top priority job now is to appease Fenger, in case she offends the Ghost Emperor and the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Yes, your majesty. The empress lowered her head. Suddenly the man's expression surfaced in her mind. Unfeeling, chilly, seemingly a bottomless abyss, causing one to be filled with fear and struggle for help. Would such a man honestly accept Fenger as his concubine? Frankly speaking, the Empress wasn't certain, as she was even faintly worried. However, no one could change what the Emperor decided, and she could only comply. Chapter 1930. Heading towards Fengyun City 1. Tianqi Kingdom, Second Prince's Estate. Just as Qi Ling thought of leaving, he bumped head-on into a woman and was suddenly distracted. "Miss Yun, I was just about to look for you, and you came." "I came to ask, when will we be leaving?" Young Luo Feng shot a glance at Qi Ling as she asked. "As the Four Kingdom tournament is held at Fengyun City and it's extremely far from the Tianqi Kingdom, we should be leaving 3 days later." Fengyun City. Young Luo Feng's eyes twinkled. This continent was named the Fengyun continent. Could it be, it's related to Fengyun City? Qi Su, following beside Yun Luofeng, was suddenly distracted after hearing the location. "When my master came from another continent to the Fengyun continent, she came via Fengyun City." Hearing his recount, Yun Luofeng began pondering. Her fingers gently stroked her jaw. "Since that was so, explain to me the situation of Fengyun City." "Alright, follow me and we'll discuss this slowly in the study room." Qi Ling's study room was simple and unadorned. The bookshelves were filled with books as it faintly gave off a fragrant odor. After walking in, he tasked 2 guards to deliver 2 stools, placing them near Yun Luofeng and Qi Su for them to take a seat. "Miss Yun, young Master Qi Su. I'm not too knowledgeable about the exact situation of Fengyun City, and I presume only my imperial father is clear about the inside story." Qi Ling's expression radiated seriousness. "However, I know that this Fengyun City is our Fengyun continent's sacred place. If Fengyun City exists, so would the continent. Vice versa, once Fengyun City is destroyed, the entire Fengyun continent and even everyone in it would disappear." Yun Luofeng became silent. Previously, the woman from the Qin family whom they captured on God Burial Mountain mentioned that the spirit god continent existed because someone established a matrix, separating both worlds. Furthermore, they had transferred all the spiritual energy in the continent into the spirit god continent. According to this view, the Fengyun continent and spirit god continent were similar but was achieved by different methods. Whereas Fengyun City was also the location of the heart of the matrix. If the matrix core was damaged, the Fengyun continent would naturally disappear. As for these people, it wasn't possible for them to be eliminated by the natural law. They would probably enter the 7-province continent. There were too many experts on Fengyun continent, and if they were allowed to enter the 7-province continent, it would definitely cause a violent sensation. Furthermore, there are too many of her close ones within the 7-province continent. Therefore, she would never allow this to happen. Other than that, Yun Luofeng narrowed her eyes as a cold glint streaked across her eyes. Qi Ling was silent for a moment. Everyone on this continent is afraid of damaging Fengyun City. Thus, Fengyun City is only a dead city in everyone's eyes. Other than special occasions such as the Four Kingdom tournament, no one would be allowed to take a single step inside Fengyun City on normal days. Yun Luofeng thought for a second and continued asking, "You've never entered Fengyun City?" "I've never entered Fengyun City to this day. Also, I don't know how it looks inside." Hearing his words, Yun Luofeng did not continue questioning. Even if she did ask, she probably wouldn't be able to obtain any useful information from him. However, Qi Ling paused for a moment before continuing, "After entering Fengyun City, there's a place where you cannot enter." "What place?" Yun Luofeng's eyes brightened up. Chapter 1931. Heading towards Fengyun City 2. Fengyun City's ritual grounds. Qi Ling paused for a moment and continued. "In reality, no one has entered this ritual ground. It's rumored that there is lightning surrounding the location, and upon stepping in, one would be struck by lightning. Also, the bolts of lightning are even more terrifying than the heavenly tribulation lightning during a breakthrough." Yun Luofeng's lips twitched. "Even more terrifying than tribulation lightning? That's because they've never encountered true heavenly tribulation lightning." If she hadn't had the dragon scale armor as protection, along with her puppet that could absorb lightning, her soul would have been scattered under the heavenly tribulation. Therefore, Yun Luofeng believed that no matter how terrifying that lightning was, it couldn't be compared to that heavenly tribulation lightning. "How are the preparations going for the troops?" Young Luo Feng suddenly questioned. Qi Ling honestly answered, I've selected the elites from my men and this time around, we will never lose during the Four Kingdom tournament. While speaking, his voice suddenly became extremely domineering, seemingly having the imposing manner of a kingdom's ruler. Compared to the third prince, the second prince Qi Ling clearly had the capability to lead the Tianqi kingdom to its peak. Wait for me at the city gates 3 days from now. At that time, we'll set off together. After speaking, young Luo Feng took a last glance at Qi Ling before turning to leave. With Qi Su following behind her, they quickly disappeared from the study room. 3 days later, the city gates were bustling with activity. Qi Ling was ready and waiting when he suddenly spotted the third prince Qi Yu leading a group of troops as they slowly walked over. Sparks flew the instant their eyes locked. There were flames of fury and contempt in Qi Yu's eyes, as he looked down at Qi Ling standing before him. Oh, your hand has recovered. Qi Ling sneered as he expressionlessly questioned. Hearing his question, Qi Yu's face thoroughly changed. He tightly clenched his left hand, while his right hand was limply hanging at his side. Second brother, even if my hand is crippled, I'm still capable of obtaining victory in the Four Kingdom tournament. As for you, Qi Yu smirked in contempt. You were only sent by Imperial Father to increase our numbers. Imperial Mother mentioned before that Qi Ling heading towards the Fengyun city was because Imperial Father had sent him to increase their numbers. It is impossible for him to obtain victory. The reason is, the state preceptor once said that I am bound to be the one who unifies the Four Kingdoms. Being compared with someone as outstanding as myself, Qi Ling is bound to seem more disappointing. Is that so? Qi Ling quirked his lips in mocking and shifted his sight to Qi Yu's crippled arm. One of your arms is crippled, and what capability do you have to obtain victory? Qi Yu walked up and lifted his chin while speaking in an overbearing manner. Although I was also worried at the start, what Imperial Mother said is reasonable. I'm sure you know, the prophecies of the state preceptor of our Tianqi kingdom have always been very accurate. Since he said that I'm the one who can unify the Four Kingdoms, then I will win no matter what condition I'm in. His had a confident expression, as though he was certain that he would obtain victory. In actuality, Qi Ling was also aware of the state preceptor's abilities. In particular, the state preceptor had always maintained his young and youthful appearance. Solely relying on this point, one would know that he wasn't simple. However, his prophecy was from 10 years ago, and 10 years can completely change a person. Even if Qi Yu had talent from the start, he had long become a dandy man after numerous years of pampering. Chapter 1932. Heading towards Fengyun City 3. A dandy man capable of unifying the Four Kingdoms. If so, then there would be no such thing as trashes in this world. Qi Ling was disinclined to speak with him as he noticed young Luo Feng and Qi Su walking over. However, there was another young man following them. Compared to young Luo Feng and Qi Su, who had a relaxed look, the young man was carrying bags of luggage with a look of discontent on his handsome face. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and even walking proved to be strenuous. In anyone's point of view, it would arouse feelings of heartache. Qi Ling glanced at the young man before shifting his sight towards young Luo Feng as he questioned, Miss Yun, you don't have a space ring. With young Luo Feng's capabilities, it wasn't possible that she lacked spaced rings. Young Luo Feng shrugged her shoulders. He prefers to temper his physique, and I couldn't bear to discourage him. Thus, I've permitted him to carry these pieces of luggage. Mo Qiancheng's expression became increasingly resentful. But he understood that young Luo Feng wanted to use these methods to force his retreat. Therefore, he would never do as she desired. Qi Ling's lips twitched, fond of tempering his physique. Never in his life had he seen such methods of training one's body. HMPH. Qi Yu's complexion darkened and snorted. Just admit that you're poor, why look for excuses? To think you could be poor to such an extent that you don't even possess a space ring. Young Luo Feng quirked her brow as her wicked smiling eyes gradually landed on Qi Yu's face. Why, you don't want your left hand too? Her threat caused Qi Yu's expression to change. Perhaps recalling young Luo Feng's frightening aspect, he hastily stopped himself, afraid that this woman would take action because of a brief remark. Furthermore, she attacked him, but his imperial father hadn't arrested her. Even his imperial mother reminded him to have less contact with her. Even so, he was unresigned to have suffered a defeat. Just you wait and see. After throwing out these words, Qi Yu led his subordinates and walked out of the city gates. Qi Ling finally started talking after Qi Yu's departure. Miss Yun, we should set off too. Alright, let's go. Yun Luo Feng nodded and flung her sleeves while taking the lead to walk out the city gates. Yun Luo Feng and her company were unaware of a sinister pair of eyes coldly staring at their backs. This is the woman who injured my son. The noble lady tightly gripped her handkerchief, nearly tearing it apart. Her eyes were evil and menacing while staring intently at the departing troops. Reporting to her Imperial Majesty, she's the one who broke the third prince's arm. HMPH. I shall not take her life just yet. After my imperial son unifies the four kingdoms, it'll be her doomsday. The noble lady lifted her chin. In addition, have those experts of the imperial family disguise themselves as bandits and ambush them. However, don't touch Qi Ling and that woman yet, as killing their subordinates will suffice. Make it so that Qi Ling and that woman head to Fengyun City on their own. Even though she knew that Qi Ling couldn't win, she wanted him to suffer a heavy defeat. Within the Four Kingdom tournament, having a team was extremely important. Otherwise, it was impossible to win no matter how strong that single person was. Thinking of this, a chilly glint streaked across her eyes as an eerie smile curved on her lips. The road from the Tianqi Kingdom towards Fengyun City was extremely long and one had to go through a perilous mountain range during the journey. Fortunately, the men Qi Ling brought were elites of the team and there wasn't a need for Yun Luo Feng to personally take action to resolve those dangers. Chapter 1933, Zhu Qian. Miss Yun, we'll be reaching Fengyun City very soon after passing this mountain. Qi Ling turned and said to the white-robed lady. Yun Luo Feng nodded, I'll leave for a short moment so wait for me here. I'll be back soon. In regards to Yun Luo Feng's action of disappearing for half a day upon arriving at every mountain, Qi Ling and company did not mind it. They did not say much about it and allowed her to do as she pleased. Of course, Yun Luo Feng left because there were plenty of priceless treasures in the Fengyun continent and even the medicinal herbs were of better quality compared to the seven-province continent. In particular, there were much more precious medicinal herbs surrounding the mountains. As such, Yun Luo Feng would gather all the precious medicinal herbs every time they arrived at a new mountain. It's more or less all of it. After Yun Luo Feng kept the last stock of medicinal herb, she glanced at the gradually dimming skies and muttered. They should have rested enough and I should return. Thinking of this, she turned and intended to return. Yet at that very instant, flute sounds from far away could be heard, causing her pupils to constrict and she looked far ahead. It was a white-robed young man with a head full of hair as black as ink spreading behind his back. Countless birds revolved above his head as they danced about, seemingly coordinating with his tune. A dull maple leaf fell, landing on the young man's shoulders. It seemed so picturesque, giving off a faintly discernible and unreal feeling. However, this young man was not similar to Chen Yuqing. Although Chen Yuqing's appearance was similar to an immortal and he acted like one, he still gave off a realistic feeling. Yet, the young man playing a tune seemed to have walked out from clouds and mists, and did not seem realistic. Yun Luo Feng's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Her hand covered her chest as if a sort of emotion was about to overflow. However, Yun Luo Feng was clearly aware that these overflowing emotions did not belong to her. Zhu Qian once told her that upon encountering his reincarnation in the future, she would recognize him with a glance. Right now, the instant she saw this young man, an unknown feeling emerged within her heart. He is Zhu Qian, the Zhu Qian I have been searching for. All of a sudden, the young man took a step and departed as his snow-white long robes gradually disappeared from Yun Luo Feng's sight. Zhu Qian, Yun Luo Feng shouted. However, the young man did not turn around and he disappeared within the forest in a flash. While those birds that originally encircled in the skies had also dispersed. Master, Xiao Mo's somewhat doubting voice sounded, is he really Zhu Qian? I remember Zhu Qian from the paintings wasn't someone like that. Initially, when Yun Luo Feng obtained Zhu Qian's inheritance, she had also seen a painting. The man in the painting was wearing red robes while seated on a black chair with dragon prints. His left hand propping his chin while his right hand pointing a middle finger towards the skies. The meaning behind his actions was that even the heavens weren't deserving for him to take notice. How could such a proud and arrogant, powerful and strong man be that white-robed young man? They had two completely different styles. I have a premonition that he is Zhu Qian. Young Luo Feng narrowed her eyes. It's no wonder I couldn't find him even after searching throughout the entire 7-province continent. So it turns out, he's in the Fengyun continent. Since it's so, things are much easier. As long as he exists, I can definitely locate him once again. Chapter 1934. Complete Wipeout. 1. Xiao Mo was taciturn without speaking. Since young Luo Feng believed him to be Zhu Qian, then there was a high possibility he was. Master, it's already quite late, Xiao Mo urged her. Without knowing why, he felt somewhat uneasy, as if something was about to happen. Young Luo Feng also seemed to have sensed something as she rushed in the direction of the Tianqi kingdom's troops. As these troops had previously experienced a battle, they were currently resting at their original position. She had taken advantage of the time to separate from the troops to harvest medicinal herbs. At this moment within the forest, the setting sun reddened the whole sky. Qi Ling tightly gripped his long sword, while his face was dyed in blood and his gaze appeared malevolent. Qi Su guarded Mo Qiancheng behind his back as he dealt with the atrocious group of bandits. His handsome face also appeared grave. Over half of their troops were casualties and he was afraid the rest could no longer persevere for long. Second Prince, these people don't seem like bandits. Qi Su blocked an attack with his sword and his voice was cold. Looking at these bandits concealing their appearance and aura, Qi Ling revealed an angry smile. Wiping the blood on his face, the smile on his lips seemed somewhat eerie. You're sent by Consort Lin. Consort Lin was the third Prince Qi Yu's mother. Other than her, he couldn't think of anyone else. These bandits did not utter a single word as their attacks became increasingly fierce. Towards Qi Ling's elites, they were completely ruthless. Qi Ling gradually became anxious, but more of it was anger. These elites were trained by him for numerous years and right now they were about to be completely wiped out. No, he would never allow such a situation to happen. Qi Ling gnashed his teeth and said, "Young Master Qi Su, bring along the rest and escape. I'll ward off the attackers." He sensed that they didn't have intentions to harm him as he was still the Tianqi kingdom's prince. If something really happened, no one could bear the responsibility. However, they were merciless against his own troops. From this, he could infer that Consort Lin intended to make him a general without an army. In that case, he would certainly suffer a defeat in this tournament. Qi Ling sneered. How could he allow that woman's evil schemes to prevail? I'm afraid it's beyond my capability. Qi Su retreated. I wonder if you've sensed two auras that have yet to appear. Both of them are evidently heavenly god realm cultivators. I'm incapable of leaving under their attacks and right now, we can only await Miss Yun's return. Qi Ling's eyes turned chilly. Within every kingdom, there would be a group of elders and those capable of entering that group were all heavenly god cultivators. For the princes, the elder group was extremely important. As such, no matter him or Consort Lin's faction, they had all attempted to rope in those elders within the group. Right now, these heavenly god cultivators clearly come from Consort Lin's factions. More importantly, those two heavenly god cultivators he roped hadn't sent any information about heavenly god cultivators leaving the Tianqi kingdom. If it wasn't with his imperial father's permission, how could the matter of heavenly god level cultivators leaving the Tianqi kingdom be concealed? Thinking of this, Qi Ling's expression became increasingly grim as his heart turned cold. His elites were nearly wiped out, with only a few persistently persevering on, while those two heavenly god-level cultivators hidden in the dark had yet to reveal themselves. Chapter 1935. Complete Wipeout. 2. If it weren't for Qi Su giving out spirit herbs with healing properties, they probably would have been completely wiped out. Mo Qiancheng stood behind Qi Su all along and looking at the experts killing them as if ants, an obscure glint streaked through his eyes. Should I try my luck? Perhaps the seal will be undone. He suddenly made a decision and stepped around Qi Su. Then, he walked towards those black-robed experts. They naturally regarded Mo Qiancheng as Qi Ling's subordinates and launched an attack immediately. Mo Qiancheng closed his eyes and a powerful pressure locked on him. A fatal crisis arrived before him, seemingly as though he was a small boat amid a violent storm. What are you doing? Qi Su's expression changed as he hastily pulled Mo Qiancheng's arm, wanting to pull him away. However, at that moment, a raging flame suddenly ignited on that black-robed man who launched an attack towards Mo Qiancheng. Soon after that, he turned into ashes while everyone was watching. The aura locked on him had disappeared and the earlier sense of crisis had simultaneously vanished without a trace. Mo Qiancheng opened his eyes in fury, wanting to see who had disrupted his plans. Unexpectedly, he met a pair of ice-cold eyes. He trembled in that instant, wanting to say something as he opened his mouth but couldn't utter a single word. Frankly speaking, he did think of using such a method to lift his seal. Unfortunately, he had rarely encountered an expert after coming here and normal people were incapable of killing him or bringing about a sense of crisis. Only those fatal attacks were powerful enough for him to forcefully break his seal. Unexpectedly, his first attempt had been discovered by Luo Feng. Luo Feng, Mo Qiancheng wanted to explain but that white-robed lady had already turned around as she swept across those black-robed experts with a cool eye. Did you enjoy killing them all? Her voice was bone-chilling, seemingly coming from the underworld as it caused others to be scared witless. Then now it's my turn. Boom. Before those black-robed men could react, a gust of violent wind surged forth and not a single living thing survived under the destructive storm. Let's go. In any case, Qi Ling's troops were more or less wiped out and their mission was considered complete. Therefore, the black-robed man did not hesitate, turning with intentions to escape. Thinking of leaving, it's too late. Bang. An overspread might capable of hiding the skies and covering the earth pressed down from above. Their bodies stiffened as they unconsciously stopped in their tracks. Meanwhile, the white-robed lady appeared behind their backs and her ice-cold, sharp weapon pierced a man's throat. In an instant, blood splashed out and it was completely silent. She was extremely fast, to the extent they were incapable of reacting in time. After they recovered their senses, that person had already met his end. Chi Su and company finally relaxed. As long as she returned, no one was capable of escaping. Hold it. Just as Luo Feng got rid of another two men, the two heavenly god-level cultivators hidden in the dark finally moved, with two silhouettes appearing in the skies. One was wearing a fluttering white robe and carried an immortal-like bearing, while the other was dressed in grey robes, seemingly rather mysterious. Miss, anyone can make mistakes and it's better to forgive them when possible, the white-robed elder spoke with indifference. Why the need to eradicate them? How could Luo Feng not know that these two elders were partners of those black-robed men who killed people as if ants? Forgive those who make mistakes. Eradicate them. Luo Feng chuckled. Then what are their previous actions considered as? I'm only taking revenge right now. One should pay with their lives for killing and they all deserve to die. Chapter 1936. Idiots who pose as being righteous. The white-robed elder's eyes dimmed. I didn't see them killing, only you chasing them. I had no alternative but to step out and stop you. Oh, that's to say, this group of people around me committed suicide. Or perhaps there was an internal massacre. Luo Feng narrowed her eyes as she spoke with an angry smile. The white-robed elder had an indifferent expression. It's possible. Are you an idiot or do you think everyone is a moron? Clearly, my men were killed by these people, yet you're still sprouting bullshit with your eyes open. Luo Feng pressed in closer to those two elders. Speak, who sent you here? Hearing her question, the white-robed elder did not even look up at her. I'm unacquainted with these people and I merely walked past when I saw you bullying the weak. I couldn't put up with your actions and so, interfered. What if I insist on killing them? A dangerous glint surfaced in Luo Feng's eyes as she revealed an angry smile. Then don't blame me for being unreasonable. The white-robed elder's tone was still of indifference, yet he had already extended his hand as he launched an attack towards Luo Feng. The two elders knew of Luo Feng's strength from Consort Lin and naturally, wouldn't underestimate the enemy. Therefore, after the white-robed elder attacked, the grey-robed elder matched his actions. Both of them were merciless and unleashed their full force. I'll kill those who obstruct me from killing my enemies. Luo Feng's voice was extremely domineering, as it echoed throughout the skies. Simultaneously, she summoned her dragon-scale armor while holding on a longsword in her hands. In the blink of an eye, she dashed towards the two elders. Flashes and shadows of swords could be seen and the entire skies vibrated due to their clash. Qi Su stood in the forest with his eyes filled with worry while spectating young Luo Feng fighting in the sky. That's weird, Qi Ling slightly frowned. I've met the heavenly god level cultivators within the imperial family, but I don't recognize these two. Qi Su was distracted for a moment before turning towards Qi Ling. Could it be that they weren't sent by Consort Lin? No, I believe it's her. Only she could have done something like this, said Qi Ling as he shook his head. Then what's going on? Qi Si questioned with a worried frown. Hearing their conversation, Mo Qiancheng couldn't help but interrupt. Have you never heard of the art of disguise? They were capable of changing their aura, and so it was natural they could alter their appearance. After all, since that so-called consort could commit such acts, she would certainly be unwilling to leave any traces. Therefore, it was natural that she ordered them to disguise themselves. Mo Qiancheng couldn't help but glance at young Luo Feng locked in a battle with the two elders, but it was unclear from his pitch-black eyes what were his internal thoughts. In the sky, young Luo Feng was incapable of dealing with her opponents with ease as before. Although she had once defeated a heavenly god-level cultivator, that was because there was only one opponent. Right now, there were two of them standing before her. In addition, the dragon scale armor had a time limit and she had to settle them within the time frame. Otherwise, once she lost the dragon scale armor, it was even more impossible to deal with them. Boom. The gray-robed elder suddenly appeared behind young Luo Feng. As he released a punch to her back, she was sent crashing a few meters ahead. Lifting her head, her narrowed eyes contained a chilly glint. Miss Yun, Qi Su's heart skipped a beat as hated his weak self. If it weren't for his weak strength, he could have been at least helpful in such a situation. Chapter 1937. Broke through to the heavenly god level 1. Miss, do you know a saying? The old man in white looked at the white-clad woman in front of him and said mildly, karma is a bitch. Since you killed people, now you have to pay. Young Luo Feng wiped the blood off her lower lip and smiled, and I also want to teach you a saying, the wages of sin is death. Hearing this, the old man in white scowled and then he snorted, you are really sharp-tongued. In this case, don't blame me for being rude. Boom. In an instant, the old man in white released a powerful aura again which swept across the whole sky like a flood. The sky turned gray at this moment. In the middle of the sky, young Luo Feng held a long sword in her hand and stood against the wind. She looked nonchalant, and her long dark hair was fluttering in the gale. Master, let Yunyi and Little Bug come out to help you. From the soul of young Luo Feng came Xiao Mo's worried voice. Little Bug and Yunyi had broken through to the god level, and one of them was a primitive dragon ancestor, and the other was an immortal puppet. With the strength of the god level, they would be able to cope with the heavenly god level spirit cultivators. However, young Luo Feng shook her head resolutely, no, I can handle it. Besides, I've already reached the bottleneck several days ago. Perhaps this battle can help me make a breakthrough. From the very start, young Luo Feng had been ready to fight the two old men. Even if she was defeated, she still had Little Bug and Yunyi in her hands. She had reached a bottleneck, so she wanted to fight the two alone. Boom. When young Luo Feng said this, the attacks of the two old men had reached her again. Eager to fight, she came up to them. As the battle in the sky was getting fiercer, the people below became nervous. Mo Qiancheng had been staring at young Luo Feng who was fighting the two old men, and a red light gradually appeared in his black eyes. He tightly clenched his fists, and his young, handsome face was filled with anger. Yes, anger. Looking at the besieged woman, Mo Qiancheng suddenly thought of the man who was as dazzling as a king being hunted by so many strong masters. Bang. At this moment, the fist of the old man in grey landed heavily on young Luo Feng and made her shoot out like an arrow. No, don't. Mo Qiancheng felt his heart stopped beating at this moment. His eyes were all red, and his long, silvery hair was wildly fluttering with the gale. He looked horrible, not at all like that young, innocent boy. Kill everyone, and bury them with Zhu Qian. Bury them with Zhu Qian. These words jumped into Mo Qiancheng's mind, and his mind went blank, as if there was only one thought left, everyone present, whoever they were, shall die. The two heavenly god-level spirit cultivators shall die, because they hurt her. The second prince shall die. If he hadn't attracted these people here, she wouldn't have been in danger. Click. The young man stood firmly in place and he could clearly hear the seal broken inside his body. However, at this moment, his eyes could only see the girl who was falling down from the sky. His eyes were all red as if being filled with blood and shining with a scary glint. Everyone was looking at young Luo Feng, so no one found the abnormality in Mo Qiancheng. Chapter 1938. Broke through to the heavenly god level 2. Bang. Young Luo Feng's body hit the ground so hard that it made a big hole in the ground. She wiped the blood from her lips and got up from the ground. Without hesitation, she rushed towards the two old men again. Huh. The eyes of the old man in gray were full of astonishment, and his voice was grim. Girl, it seems that I underestimated you. Taking such a heavy blow, you can still stand up. No wonder you accomplished so much at such a young age. Young Luo Feng looked up, her black eyes sparkling. Continue. This time, she took the initiative and rushed towards the nearest old man in gray. The old man in gray dodged and evaded young Luo Feng's attack. His arm fell heavily on young Luo Feng's shoulder and made her retreat a few steps, leaving a shadow in the sky. At this moment, young Luo Feng clearly felt that the power of the dragon scale armor began to decline. If she couldn't solve them now, she would not be able to defeat them with her own strength. Girl, it doesn't look like you're going to last long. At first, young Luo Feng was able to evade his attacks, but now her strength was waning. Apparently, she couldn't rival them. However, the old man in gray also wanted to fight a quick battle, so without giving young Luo Feng breathing space, he attacked her again. Boom. As a strong force invaded into her body, young Luo Feng vomited a mouthful of blood, but her body was still as hard as iron, without any trace of falling down. Go on, she wiped the blood from her lips and said. Lao Bai, the old man in gray took a look at the old man in white and said grimly, it's getting late. We should leave now, so, this time, let's not hold back and kill her with all our might. Okay. The old man in white nodded. He slowly raised his hand and a storm gradually appeared in front of his hands. The storm grew larger and larger, and seemed to have the power to destroy the heavens and the earth, enough to destroy everything. The old man in gray responded in kind. A gale suddenly appeared around him, and even his gray robe was swept up by the gale. A blow with all the might of one of them would be enough to turn this young woman to ashes, not to mention the blow with all the might of both of them. In the decaying jungle, Mo Qiancheng was standing still. Tiny breaking sounds kept coming from within his body. However, no one could hear them except himself. When he saw young Luo Feng in the midst of a crisis, the breaking sounds became faster and faster, and with a boom, something broke within his body. Unfortunately, it was too late. Before Mo Qiancheng broke the seal, the two old men's attacks had reached young Luo Feng and swallowed her body up in an instant. No. Mo Qiancheng's pupils suddenly constricted, and he cried out loud, his voice filled with pain and fear. Miss Yun. Qi Su and Qi Ling turned pale and rushed to where young Luo Feng was just standing. Mo Qiancheng stood there in a daze. He looked at where young Luo Feng was swallowed up, and turned his eyes to Qi Ling who looked so nervous. In an instant, an intense murderous desire shot from his constricted pupils. He tightly clenched his fists and his face looked ferocious with pain. Did he kill young Luo Feng? Yes, young Luo Feng wouldn't have died if he hadn't attracted these people here. So, both the heavenly god-level spirit cultivators and the Tianqi kingdom people shall be buried with her. Chapter 1939. Broke through to the heavenly god level 3. Humph, we finally solved this woman. The old man in gray snorted and said grimly, let's go, we should go back. However, just as the two of them turned around, a wicked and domineering voice suddenly came from the smoke-covered land. Qi Su, get out of the way. The sound made the two old men stiffen. Qi Su and Qi Ling paused for a second before they responded. They quickly withdrew by hundreds of meters. Mo Qiancheng's glassy eyes gradually glowed as he stared into the smoke-covered sky for fear of missing the smallest detail. As the dust cleared, young Luo Feng's figure slowly appeared. The woman was a bit discomfited, but she still looked spotlessly clean. Her dragon scale armor had completely disappeared, and her white robe was torn into pieces. The old man in white looked back in surprise, and the pupils of his eyes suddenly diffused. He suddenly found it hard to breathe. You are still alive. How was this possible? How could this woman still be alive? Young Luo Feng answered him with a mysterious smile, I have a gift for you. What? Before the two old men could react, they heard a crash and a thundercloud appeared in the sky. This thundercloud glowed purple and rumbled, and then, without warning, a lightning bolt came down. Ah! The two old men, near young Luo Feng, were also hit by the lightning, and a whine went out of their mouths. You are having a breakthrough. Lightning punishment would occur when someone broke through from the god level to the heavenly god level. And this woman had a breakthrough at this time. I should thank you for helping me break through my bottleneck. Without your help, I wouldn't have been able to achieve this. The old man in white was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He gnashed his teeth. You think you can kill us with the heavenly lightning punishment? I tell you, no way. I have experienced heavenly lightning punishment. After all, he had broken through from the god level to the heavenly god level, so he had experienced heavenly lightning punishment. It was impossible to kill them with heavenly lightning punishment. Young Luo Feng gave a wicked smile. Unfortunately, my heavenly lightning punishment is different from the others. Quote. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as she said this, the heavenly lightning punishment came again. This one was more powerful than the previous one, directly hit the two old men's bodies and made them whine shrilly. However, it was not yet the end. Lightning bolts, much more powerful than the previous ones, kept falling like rain, leaving the two old men no strength to escape. Ah! Seeing that the two old men kept whining miserably, the crowd was dumbfounded. Chi Su was stunned when he saw the powerful heavenly lightning punishment, his eyes glassy. Suddenly, he cried out loud, oh, my gosh. Hearing it, Qi Ling turned to him. What happened? Chi Su's expression kept changing. Nearly a year ago, someone broke through to the god level near our Luo Feng kingdom, causing a heavenly lightning punishment. It was so fierce that all the strong masters in the Luo Feng kingdom were shocked by it. At that time, I found Miss Yun close to the place where that heavenly lightning punishment occurred. Unfortunately, at that time, I thought Miss Yun was just unluckily injured by the heavenly lightning punishment. But now I think the person who triggered the heavenly lightning punishment was her. At the thought of this, Chi Su took a deep breath. He remembered the whole Luo Feng kingdom was searching for the strong master who caused such a powerful heavenly lightning punishment everywhere, but it never occurred to him that that strong master was at his side. Chapter 1940. Broke through to the heavenly god level 4. Even the heavenly god level strong masters of the Tianqi kingdom couldn't withstand such heavenly lightning punishment. By contrast, young Luo Feng looked quite relaxed, as if taking a shower. In fact, no one knew that young Luo Feng's body had already been overwhelmed by the lightning. However, she had to hold on and couldn't let all her previous efforts wasted. Fortunately, she had experienced this kind of heavenly lightning punishment and was somewhat resistant to it. Compared with the two old men, she was in much better condition. Girl, you're so evil. You'll be liable to retribution. The old man in white gnashed his teeth. His mouth was full of blood, and he spoke ferociously. I'm just making a breakthrough, said young Luo Feng with a smile. You showed up at my side. Heavenly lightning doesn't have eyes. How can you blame me? Indeed, this heavenly lightning was not summoned by young Luo Feng. They were just unlucky. Boom. As the lightning kept striking down with one stronger than the other, the two old men finally couldn't hold on and fell to the ground. With their last strength, the old men shouted angrily, the Tao of Heaven won't let you off, even if we die here. This girl was so talented that she attracted such powerful heavenly lightning. If she continued to grow, the consequences would be disastrous. After that, they lost all their strength, and their eyelids gradually drooped. When the two old men lost their resistance, young Luo Feng also couldn't hold on. Her body shook a little and she suddenly called out. Yun Yi. Swish. In an instant, a powerful figure appeared in front of young Luo Feng. He appeared out of nowhere and blocked all the fierce heavenly lightning. The heavenly lightning kept striking at Yun Yi's bulky body and almost swallowed him. However, Yun Yi remained expressionless without batting an eyelid. A puppet. Qi Ling and the others were all stunned to see Yunyi blocking the heavenly lightning. And then they saw a more shocking scene. The fierce heavenly lightning was all absorbed by Yunyi. Absorbing them, he released a strong power and his cold eyes looked so powerful. Heavenly God level. After absorbing the heavenly lightning, the puppet had reached the heavenly God level. Qi Ling and the others all gaped in surprise. They were shocked by what they saw. As for the two old men, they had hoped that young Luo Feng would also be killed by the heavenly lightning. After seeing this, they turned pale and their eyes were filled with horror. Kill them. Young Luo Feng gave a faint smile and said flatly. Soon, Yunyi rushed to them. Since the elders had lost their battle power under the heavenly lightning, Yunyi could kill them as simply as cutting vegetables. As he moved his hands, they were stabbed through the chest. Once the heavenly god-level spirit cultivators died, the others were completely routed. However, under Yunyi's threat, no one dared to escape. Young Luo Feng walked slowly to Qi Su and the others, and looked at Qi Ling who was dumbfounded. Go and check if you know the two men. Okay. A complex gleam flickered across Qi Ling's eyes, and he felt lucky. He felt lucky that he had young Luo Feng to help him. He had confidence that with young Luo Feng's strength, she would sooner or later be able to unify the Fengyun continent, the continent of wind and cloud. Chapter 1941. Broke through to the heavenly god level 5. Qi Ling slowly walked to the two old men and lifted the life-like human masks on their faces. When he saw their familiar faces, even if he had been prepared, he couldn't help but feel a chill. These two men are members of the board of elders of the Tianqi kingdom, and they only obey my father's orders. Qi Su looked at Qi Ling and found he looked sad. At this moment, he felt some sympathy. How similar was Qi Ling to the former him at this moment? Fortunately, they both met young Luo Feng, a savior who could change their lives. Miss Yun, Qi Ling asked, turning his head to young Luo Feng, these people followed me for years but were killed through no fault of their own. I don't want to bury them on this spot. I'm going to have the survivors send their bodies to the Tianqi kingdom and let their souls go home. As for the Four Kingdom tournament, I'll attend it alone. Even if he was alone, he would try his best to win. Young Luo Feng nodded. Okay, send them home. Besides, you'll have a chance to avenge your men. Qi Ling said nothing. It never occurred to him that his father would do such a thing to help his third younger brother. He was, after all, his father, so he still couldn't be determined to kill him. However, he would never forget what happened today. If that man wouldn't do anything bad in the future, he would only imprison him when he took the throne. If he still wanted to lay his hands on him, then even though he was his father, he wouldn't forgive him. Qi Ling breathed out slowly, with a smile on his handsome face. The Four Kingdom tournament is going to start. Let's set off. With this, Qi Ling issued orders to the surviving elite. They bowed to him and left, preparing to bring the dead back to their native land. Qi Ling waved his sleeves and looked unrestrained. Noble consort Lin, if you want me to serve as a foil to your son, you made a big mistake. I will be the champion of this Four Kingdom tournament and I'll never give up. Looking at the confident Qi Ling, young Luo Feng nodded with satisfaction. Mo Qiancheng had been looking at young Luo Feng by the side. He tried to speak several times but finally swallowed his words. Glimpsing Mo Qiancheng who seemed to have something to say, young Luo Feng asked him mildly, what's up? Mo Qiancheng hung down his head and looked ashamed. Sorry, I couldn't help you. Now, whenever he thought that young Luo Feng was almost killed by those people, his heart was filled with panic and anger. However, no matter how angry he was, he couldn't help young Luo Feng. It was too late for him to break through the seal. If he could have broken through the seal earlier, maybe, young Luo Feng would not have faced such a crisis. You don't have to apologize. It has nothing to do with you. But you are Zhu Qian. How can I stand by and do nothing? Mo Qiancheng knew that young Luo Feng wasn't that close to him, so he didn't say it out loud. As you can see, there is great danger in following me. Are you sure you want to follow me? Young Luo Feng asked, narrowing her eyes. Mo Qiancheng bit his lips. I'll be more dangerous if I don't follow you. Aren't you afraid that someone will try to kill me and let me unintentionally break through the seal? Chapter 1942. broke through to the heavenly god level 6. He couldn't tell her that he had broken through the seal, because he wanted to stay by her side. Otherwise, the woman would not let him stay. Besides, after he saw how many dangers young Luo Feng would have to face, it was even less likely for him to leave her. Let's go. Young Luo Feng turned her head to Qiling and his men and didn't speak to Mo Qiancheng again. Not long ago, there was a big crowd of people, but now only 3 of them were left. Feeling a bit sentimental, Qiling took a final look at the surviving elite and forced himself to turn his head. Let's go. Behind them, the brave soldiers bowed to them until their figures completely disappeared. The Tianqi Kingdom. Noble consort Lin was lying on her side on a soft couch, her long black hair falling down to the floor. Although she was middle-aged, she took good care of herself, so she still looked gorgeous. Your Highness. At this moment, a discomfited figure rushed in. Something bad happened, Your Highness. An imperial maid came tumbling over, her face filled with panic. Noble consort Lin frowned. What's the matter? Your Highness, the men you sent to kill the second prince's elite troops were all killed. What? Noble consort Lin's heart ached and she jumped to her feet from the soft couch, her beautiful face ghastly pale. What did you say? They were all killed. As far as she knew, young Luo Feng was just a god-level spirit cultivator. She could cope with the heavenly god-level spirit cultivators just because she had the dragon scale armor. But she sent 2 heavenly god-level spirit cultivators. By no means could young Luo Feng be their rival. Your Highness, it's true. Our men have found the bodies of Elder Bai and the other elder. Quote. Noble consort Lin went pale and fell to the floor, biting her lips tightly and trembling. How could it be? Even 2 heavenly god-level spirit cultivators couldn't defeat young Luo Feng. How powerful was that woman? At this moment, noble consort felt frightened and regretted sending people to ambush her. Besides, Your Highness, I heard that the second miss of the Jian family was disabled by someone, the imperial maid said with a trembling voice. What does this have to do with me? Noble consort Lin was worried about young Luo Feng's revenge, and her face turned sour when she heard the imperial maid's words. Here is the thing, Your Highness, several days ago, a man went to the second prince's estate to look for young Luo Feng. He happened to meet the second miss of the Jian family who was wandering outside the second prince's estate. She claimed that young Luo Feng was lewd, seducing Qi Su and then the second prince. The man became so angry that he disabled her. Noble consort Lin frowned. The man was really bodacious. How dare he touch the Jian family's people? However, how could young Luo Feng's friend be an ordinary person? The Jian family was really unfortunate. She heard that Jian Yi offended young Luo Feng and was imprisoned by her. Then the Jian family paid a great price to redeem their only remaining daughter. However, Jian Yi offended her again and was disabled. The Jian family wouldn't be able to exchange her for a fortune. Do you know where the man came from? I don't know. All I know is that he was wearing a mask. Quote. Mask. Noble consort Lin thought for a moment and had no impression of such a man, so she waved her hand and said, You can leave now. I need to calm down. Heavenly god-level spirit cultivators were important even for the imperial family. Chapter 1943, Fengyun City 1. The Tianqi Kingdom had lost 2 heavenly god-level spirit cultivators at one time, which was a great loss for Qiyu who would inherit the Tianqi Kingdom. At this moment, noble consort Lin was still confident that Qiyu would be the heir to the Tianqi Kingdom and would unify the 4 kingdoms. In the woods not far away, a cold man in a long black robe stood on top of the mountain. Fenger, wait for me. I'll go to Fengyun City soon. The picturesque figure of that beautiful woman popped up in his mind, and a smile appeared on his cold face. It had been more than 10 years since he met her. During the 10 years, they were apart from each other for most of the time, but this didn't change their affection. Wherever she went, she was in his heart. Fengyun City. In normal times, it was like a dead city, desolate and uninhabited. But today the Fengyun City was extremely boisterous. At the gate of the city, a soldier stood guard. When he saw young Luo Feng and the other 2 coming slowly, he frowned. This is Fengyun City. No one shall enter without a permit. I'm the second prince of the Tianqi Kingdom and I'm here to attend the 4 Kingdom tournament. Qi Ling stood with his hands clasped behind and spoke mildly. The soldier paused. The second prince of the Tianqi kingdom. Where are your troops? Qi Ling looked up at the soldier and his voice was cold. I don't need any troops. He meant that only the 3 of them were attending the tournament. The soldier was shocked, but the tournament didn't specify the minimum number of participants, so he didn't say anything more. After Qi Ling showed him his token, he let him in. The second prince of the Tianqi kingdom is so strange. Does he think he can win the tournament with only the 3 of them? I heard that in the Tianqi kingdom, the emperor's favorite son is the 3rd prince. Maybe this second prince just came here for fun. The 2 soldiers whispered to each other and didn't say anything more. They continued to guard the gate and check the identities of the people coming. Although the Fengyun city was uninhabited at ordinary times, its environment was very beautiful. Even the staging post was luxurious. The gate of the staging post was also guarded by a soldier. After Qi Ling showed him his token, the soldier let him in. However, as soon as the 3 were going into the staging post, they saw Qi Yu stride towards them. Qi Yu glimpsed Qi Ling standing in the doorway and laughed when he saw no soldiers behind him. Haha, second elder brother, where are your elite troops? Did they die on the way? I think your elite troops are just so. They can't even handle some spiritual beasts. Why do you think you can win merely with them? Qi Ling clenched his fists. 3rd younger brother, don't you know what happened? Hearing it, a grim gleam flickered across his eyes. Second elder brother, I don't know what you mean. I'm sorry your army had an accident. But what does it have to do with me? Don't splash dirty water on me, or else father will punish you. Qi Ling's eyes glowed red at the thought of his subordinate's death, but in the end, he controlled his emotions. 3rd younger brother, remember what you did. One day, I will retaliate. Qi Yu sneered disdainfully and his eyes rested on Luo Feng's face. Chapter 1944. Fengyun City 2. He wanted to mock her, but being stared at by the woman's wicked and chilly eyes, he couldn't help but swallow his words. He waved his hand and clenched his teeth. Let's go. Humph. Though he couldn't touch this woman for now, he would make her kneel down to him and beg for his mercy when he unified the 4 kingdoms. As if thinking of that scene, Qi Yu could not help but laugh grimly and his face looked smug. After Qi Yu left, Qi Ling turned to Luo Feng and explained, the Jinyang Kingdom, the strongest one of the 4 kingdoms, hosted this 4-kingdom tournament. Princess Jinyang of the Jinyang Kingdom is very talented. Her men are also very strong. She is our strongest rival this time. Princess Jinyang was named after the country, which showed that she had a noble status in the Jinyang Kingdom. Qi Ling said this to remind Luo Feng, but considering the strength of Luo Feng, he thought he might be worrying too much. When it came to talent, no one in the world could match Luo Feng. When she was still at the god level, she could defeat heavenly god level spirit cultivators. Now she had broken through to the heavenly god level, so she would only be more powerful. However, Luo Feng only said in a languid tone, with a hint of laziness, I'm tired. Quote. Qi Ling couldn't help laughing. Our residence in the Tianqi kingdom has been prepared. Miss Yun, let me take you to have a rest. Okay. Luo Feng nodded. Instead of wasting her time listening to Qi Ling say this nonsense, she might as well cultivate. No longer speaking, Qi Ling took Luo Feng to have a rest. However, when they were going to leave, they heard a mocking voice from the front. Oh, look who is here. Mu Shuexin, your father hasn't died yet. The voice was so disdainful that Qi Su's face greatly changed. Second prince, I met an acquaintance. I'll go over there and be back soon. With that, his body turned into a gust of wind and rushed toward the neighboring yard. In the yard, a girl with her hands resting on her hips stood in the way and arrogantly stared at Mu Shuexin with a sardonic smile on her face. Mu Shuexin looked calm, but her clear eyes were filled with anger. You can rest assured, even if the last person in your Ziyu kingdom dies, my father will still be alive. How dare you? Xiao Yefeng thundered. Mu Shuexin, who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like this? Your Lufeng kingdom must have committed a great sin since your father doesn't even have a son. Do you know what it is? This is divine retribution. Your father will die without a son. Although they had a little prince, he was not fathered by Mu Zhenchen, so Xiao Yefeng said these words. Mu Shuexin got angry and slapped Xiao Yefeng in the face. No one expected that Mu Shuexin would beat another participant when the Four Kingdom tournament was going to start, so they were all dumbfounded. Mu Shuexin, how dare you beat me? Xiao Yefeng stared in disbelief and said angrily, guards, get this goddamned woman. Princess, an imperial maid at her side carefully tugged on Mu Shuexin's sleeve, we came here secretly, so we'd better keep a low profile, lest His Majesty. Chapter 1945. Fengyun City 3. This time Xiao Yefeng had snuck out of the imperial palace and came to the Four Kingdom tournament without the emperor's approval. How could her father force her to marry the ugly monster, Ghost Emperor, as a concubine? That ugly monster wasn't worthy of her. Only the ugliest woman in the world could stand that ugly monster. However, Xiao Yefeng and Mu Shuexin had been in a bad relationship for many years. As soon as she saw her, she couldn't control her emotions. Hearing the imperial maid's words, she suddenly slapped her hard, though she was usually nice to this maid. Are you blind? Didn't see me being bullied? This woman beat me. She has to pay. The imperial maid lowered her head in grief and didn't dare to say a word. Xiao Yefeng stared in anger at Mu Shuexin. When she saw the people around her not helping her, she decided to get revenge by herself. But no sooner had she lifted her hand than a strong and powerful hand seized her arm. Boom. As the man gave a violent push, Xiao Yefeng immediately stepped back a few steps. Anger welled up within her and she instantly looked up. However, she paused when she saw the young man's handsome face. In fact, Xiao Yefeng came here for a reason. Those who came to attend the Four Kingdom tournament were all outstanding talents. Before her father forced her to marry the ugly monster, Ghost Emperor, she had to find her Mr. Right. In her heart, a prince would be a good choice. Princes were not only talented but also had noble status. And some of them were very handsome. Only such a man was worthy of her. Therefore, when she took the first glance at Chi Su, Xiao Yefeng was sure that the young man in front of her was the husband she expected. Chi Su. Mu Shuexin turned her head only to see the handsome profile of the young man. She was very happy to see him here. What are you doing here? I came with Qi Ling. Muer, are you all right? Asked Chi Su, his eyes full of worry. Mu Shuexin looked shy and she shook her head. I'm all right, Chi Su. I can protect myself. Then I can rest assured. Chi Su smiled and then turned to Xiao Yefeng. His eyes immediately turned cold, and there was a chill in them. The princess of the Ziyu kingdom is just so. Xiao Yefeng was gazing lovingly at Chi Su but immediately got angry when she heard Chi Su's relentless taunt. This is a feud between me and Mu Shuexin. What does it matter to you? This young man was good-looking but had bad taste. How could he be attracted to a woman like Mu Shuexin? Mu Shuexin was not as beautiful as her. Chi Su smiled coldly and said expressionlessly, Muer is my fiance. Of course it matters to me. Xiao Yefeng gnashed her teeth. Dog matches dog, wolf matches wolf. Since Mu Shuexin is your fiance, you must be as disgusting as her. Xiao Qi, let's go. Even though Xiao Yefeng was not smart, she could tell this Chi Su wasn't weak, which could be seen from his violent push just now. Therefore, she glared at Chi Su and walked away arrogantly, followed by imperial maid and guards. Chi Su withdrew his gaze. Muer, Miss Yun is here too. Really? Mu Shuexin's eyes lit up and her face was beaming with a smile. I really admire Miss Yun's medical skills. When I have time, I want to learn some from her. She naughtily made a face and said with a smile, by the way, why did you come here with the second prince of the Tianqi kingdom? Chapter 1946. The tournament began. 1. Miss Yun wants to support Qi Ling. He told about Yun Luo Feng's purpose simply. Mu Shuexin nodded in understanding. I've heard of the second prince of the Tianqi kingdom. He is really someone. Miss Yun has a sharp eye. He will surely become a good helping hand for her in the future. Chi Su touched the back of his head and smiled shyly. Muer, I will be with the Tianqi kingdom team these days. If you have any problem, come to me at any time and I'll be glad to help you. Chi Su was still worried that she would be bullied here. Don't worry, I'll be fine. That being said, Mu Shuexin's eyes dimmed as she thought of Xiao Yefeng's words. Her father had no son but only a daughter, so she became an object of ridicule of the princesses and princes of other countries. Seeing Qi Su's worried eyes, Mu Shuexin added, if I need your help, I will go to you. Hearing it, Qi Su smiled, then I will go back first. Miss Yun may need me to do things for her. Take a good rest. Mu Shuexin thought for a moment and nodded, okay, then I'll visit Miss Yun tomorrow. For some reason, Mu Shuexin liked Yun Luofeng a lot. Perhaps, that was because she saved her and her father. At this time, Xiao Yefeng angrily walked into the room prepared for the Ziyu kingdom and cursed ferociously, that man must be blind. I'm 100 times more beautiful than Mu Shuexin, but he only paid attention to Mu Shuexin. Your Highness, Xiao Qi said. With red finger marks still on her face, she didn't dare speak as thoughtlessly as before. She said carefully, I just heard Mu Shuexin call that man Qi Su, but there isn't a prince named Qi Su in the Four Kingdoms. Xiao Yefeng paused and said, yes, the man didn't look like a prince. Is he a guard of some prince? No wonder he ignored me. That's because he knows I'm not as gullible as Mu Shuexin. The more Xiao Yefeng thought of it, the more she felt she was right. A guard became the princess's fiance. How could the Luo Feng kingdom's emperor allow this to happen? That guard didn't fall for her, because he knew that the Luo Feng kingdom had no prince. As the emperor's son-in-law, if he married his favorite daughter, maybe he would pass the throne to him. Fortunately, I didn't pursue such a man, a person willing to sell himself to Mu Shuexin for the sake of power. Such a person is truly disgusting. A touch of disgust flickered across Xiao Yefeng's eyes and she felt lucky that she was not mesmerized by that young man's handsome face. She looked up at the finger marks on Xiao Qi's face and asked, I didn't mean to hit you just now. I was just too angry. Does it still hurt? Xiao Qi's eyes were filled with grateful tears and she hurriedly shook her head. Thank you, princess, I don't feel any pain. That's good, Xiao Yefeng smiled, spread a rumor for me, saying that Mu Shuexin's fiance is just a small guard. Quote. After all, Xiao Yefeng was not from the Luo Feng kingdom and didn't know much about the other countries, so she didn't know Qi Su's status in the Luo Feng kingdom, nor did she know what happened in the Luo Feng kingdom not long ago. Though she didn't know, it didn't mean the other princesses and princes didn't know it either, so she was just asking to be insulted by asking her maid to spread this rumor. Chapter 1947. The tournament began too. The much-anticipated four-nation tournament finally began. In the center square of Fengyun City, people from all the countries had gradually come. Mu Shuexin caught sight of Yun Luofeng and Qi Su and smiled at them. Meanwhile, she also glimpsed Xiao Yefeng who was standing in the Ziyu Kingdom's team and staring at Yun Luofeng. At this moment, Xiao Yefeng's eyes were filled with surprise, gloating, and jealousy. She was surprised because Mu Shuexin's fiancé stood with another woman. She gloated, of course, because she thought she would be able to see a good show. She was jealous, because the woman in white was so gorgeous and looked like a beautiful painting. Always proud of her beautiful appearance, Xiao Yefeng was green with envy. She really wanted to rip that face off. However, thinking of the good show she was going to enjoy, she still smiled. Isn't that the fiancé of the princess of the Luo Feng kingdom? He abandoned Mu Shuexin and found a new lover so soon. Tut, men are so unreliable. Xiao Yefeng didn't care about the stares thrown at her, and said with a sneer, you are just a little guard. You hooked up with the silly woman, Mu Shuexin for the power of the imperial family, but now you're standing with another woman in public. I think only a brainless woman like Mu Shuexin would choose such a fiancé. Yes. Xiao Yefeng deliberately said this in front of everyone. Her purpose was to tell people what poor judgment Mu Shuexin had and to embarrass the Luo Feng kingdom. Besides, she really wanted to see the two women she hated fighting in public. Unfortunately, she would never be able to see such a scene. Mu Shuexin walked slowly towards Yun Luofeng, with a smile on her pretty face, as if she hadn't heard the provocative words of Xiao Yefeng. Miss Yun, I wanted to visit you the other day, but I failed to do it due to some unexpected circumstances. Please don't mind it. Xiao Yefeng's face turned black. From what she knew of Mu Shuexin, this woman would surely be infuriated if anyone dared covet her man. But why was she so friendly to the women beside Qi Su? At the thought of this, Xiao Yefeng clenched her teeth, her face angry and filled with discontent, and her eyes grim. Yun Luofeng raised her chin towards Xiao Yefeng. Do you know her? She's just a crazy woman. Mu'er and I won't associate with such a person. Qi Su said expressionlessly and coldly. Xiao Yefeng was so angry that she almost jumped up. Qi Su, who do you think you are? You're just a guard. You are not qualified to speak in front of me. Xiao Yefeng trembled all over, her face turned purple in anger and she glared at Qi Su. At this moment, she didn't notice the astonishment in other people's eyes. Guard. The Qi family was the most powerful family next to the imperial family in the Luo Feng kingdom, and Qi Su also had a powerful master. Though they were from other countries, they'd heard about Yun Yueching. Unlike the Qi family people, they didn't think Yun Yueching would never show up. Maybe she was just trapped somewhere and would come out sooner or later. So no one wanted to mess up with the disciples of Yun Yueching. Fenger, shut up. A well-dressed man heard Xiao Yefeng's words and his face immediately changed. Chapter 1948. The tournament began. 3. Brother, did I say anything wrong? Xiao Yefeng clenched her fists. I know you don't want to affect the Four Kingdom tournament, but I really can't bear it. I can't believe there are such a stupid woman and such a shameless man in the world. Fortunately, I'm smart enough not to be fooled by this man. Didn't you hear me? Shut up. The well-dressed man raised his hand and slapped Xiao Yefeng. To be honest, he had long wanted to beat this woman. She always thought she was the smartest person in the world, but in fact, no one was more stupid than her. His father hated quarreling princes and princesses, so no matter how he wanted to beat her, he couldn't do it. However, they were at Fengyun City now. How could he miss this chance? Even if the woman went back to complain to father, he wasn't in the wrong. Xiao Zixuan. Xiao Yefeng was stunned by the slap. It took a long time for her to realize what happened. She covered her swollen cheek and stared at the man in front of her in disbelief. How dare you beat me? Maybe she was too angry. She called him by his name instead of brother. I just wanted to teach you a lesson. How could you say those things before figuring out his identity? Xiao Zixuan snorted. Qi Su is the young master of the Qi family, and the Qi family is the most powerful family in the Luo Feng kingdom. How could you claim he was a guard? Xiao Yefeng was stunned. Why did such a person come to attend the Four Kingdom tournament? Wasn't the Four Kingdom tournament a competition between princes and princesses of the Four Kingdoms? And they would only bring guards and maids here with them. Most importantly, why did the heir to the most powerful family of the Luo Feng kingdom stand with the Tianqi kingdom team? Although Xiao Yefeng knew she made a mistake, she didn't apologize but shouted angrily, brother, he isn't even a member of the imperial family. You beat me just for such a lowly person. What was so important about this most powerful family? Could it be stronger than the imperial family? Besides, she didn't say anything wrong. Qi Su wanted to marry Mu Shuexin for the status of the imperial family. Otherwise, given Mu Shuexin's identity, she should marry someone from another imperial family. Xiao Zixuan didn't bother to explain to her and just said coldly, if you still want to stay here, you must listen to me. Otherwise, I will send you back to the Ziyu kingdom. Hearing that Xiao Zixuan was going to send her back, Xiao Yefeng immediately shut her mouth in fright and dared not say another word. Hearing Xiao Yefeng slandering Qi Su like this, Mu Shuexin angrily came forward and was going to argue with her, but young Luo Feng stopped her. She said the grapes were sour because she couldn't get them. Do you want to argue with her whether the grapes are really sour or not? Not to mention Mu Shuexin, even the onlookers were stunned. After a while, they figured out what she meant and burst into laughter. Nonsense. Xiao Yefeng, pushing away the imperial maid who tried to stop her, glared at young Luo Feng. When did I say anything about sour grapes? And you said I couldn't get grapes? What a joke. As a princess of the Ziyu kingdom, of course I can get grapes. Those imperial maids and guards of the Ziyu kingdom were so ashamed that they wished they could find a hole to hide in. Xiao Zixuan turned blue in embarrassment. Only Xiao Yefeng wondered why people laughed more loudly after hearing her words. Chapter 1949. The tournament began. 4. Your Highness, the imperial maid finally couldn't bear it. She carefully tugged on the sleeve of Xiao Yefeng. She meant Princess fell for Qi Su, but Qi Su is the fiance of the princess of the Luo Feng kingdom, so you spoke ill of Qi Su. The imperial maid had put it euphemistically. What she tried to say was that Xiao Yefeng humiliated Qi Su in public because she couldn't win his love. It was true, wasn't it? Xiao Yefeng finally understood what young Luo Feng meant, and her beautiful face was all red. She bit her lips tightly and clenched her fists. Mu Shuexin sneered, "You'd better go back and gain more knowledge so that you won't be confused about the meaning of sour grapes." In front of so many people, Xiao Yefeng was disgraced. Her face was full of resentment and shame. She glared at young Luo Feng, her eyes no longer filled with jealousy but malice. She couldn't touch Mu Shuexin, but she could punish young Luo Feng. As the crowd was laughing out loud, the imperial family of the Jinyang kingdom finally arrived. However, no one dared to blame them for being late. They all stood quietly on the spot and stopped laughing. "Sorry, I'm late." The emperor of the Jinyang kingdom, Cheng Feiyang, strode over, flicked his sleeves and sat on the dragon throne. By his side there stood a beautiful young woman. The woman had long black hair that was like a waterfall, thick and smooth. She was elegant and beautiful. If describing her beauty with a poem, that should be, out of clear water lotus engraved by nature. Without any makeup, she looked unworldly beautiful. In a purple skirt, she looked elegant and dignified. A light yellow ribbon was tied around her waist, which made her look very graceful. Qi Su looked at the woman standing next to Cheng Feiyang and whispered to Yun Luofeng, "She is the first talent of the Jinyang kingdom, Princess Jinyang. As Cheng Feiyang's favorite daughter, she is the second most powerful person in the Jinyang kingdom, even more powerful than the empress." Yun Luofeng's eyes also fell on Princess Jinyang. Feeling her inquisitive gaze, Princess Jinyang also looked at her. Though she was a woman, she was still stunned by the beauty of the gorgeous woman in the crowd. She thought she was peerlessly beautiful, but now she met a woman much more beautiful than her. In fact, if only by appearance, she didn't think she was inferior to her. But the woman had a special temperament that no one else possessed. She was like a queen descending to the world. Everyone was looking at Cheng Feiyang and Princess Jinyang. At this moment, even the haughty Xiao Yefeng didn't feel jealous of Princess Jinyang. "Ladies and gentlemen, this tournament will be held by our Jinyang kingdom. Whoever wins the tournament will unify the four kingdoms and become the real hegemon of the four kingdoms." Cheng Feiyang smiled faintly, his eyes shining with sophistication. Although the Jinyang kingdom was the strongest among the four kingdoms, the other countries also endorsed this tournament. That was because they needed someone to be in charge of the whole Fengyun continent. Of course, everyone hoped that the person could be themselves. "Next, team leaders, please report the number of your team members." Other than the Tianqi kingdom that had 2 teams, all the other countries only had 1 team. Chapter 1950. The tournament began 5. However, one team of the Tianqi kingdom only had 3 members. So when Qi Ling reported the number, everyone stared at them with surprise. 3. Did I hear him correctly? The second team of the Tianqi kingdom has only 3 members. Tut, does the second prince of the Tianqi kingdom think they can fight us with only the 3 of them? What a joke. They were all laughing out loud, and their faces were filled with ridicule. Mu Shuexin looked worried. She wanted to say something, but after she saw Yun Luofeng's calm face, she was no longer worried. Of the 2, one was her trusted benefactor and the other was her fiance. So, she believed in their strength. Just then, the third Prince Qi Yu stood out and said arrogantly, "You don't know how arrogant my second elder brother is. Before he came here, he claimed he could crush all other princes and princesses merely with only 3 persons." Because of the relationship between Mu Shuexin and Qi Su, the Lufeng kingdom people didn't respond to his words. However, the Ziyu kingdom and the Jinyang kingdom teams weren't so calm. As soon as they heard this, they immediately glared at Qi Ling and his teammates with anger in their eyes. Chao Zixuan didn't say anything, but he looked quite dissatisfied. Yes, he was afraid of Yun Yueqing, but it didn't mean he would be afraid of Qi Su and Qi Ling. Besides, Qi Ling said such provocative words. Only Princess Jinyang looked quite calm as if she didn't hear Qi Yu's words. She just gazed at Yun Luofeng with her clear eyes. If there was someone she felt was dangerous, that must be the woman in white. Even she didn't know why she had a feeling that maybe this woman would be a strong opponent. Qi Ling frowned, stood up and tried to say something. Suddenly, an arm reached out from the side and stopped him. The woman slightly raised her chin, her eyes looked wicked, and there was a faint smile on her gorgeous face. "You were right, we can defeat all of you with the 3 of us." She was so arrogant and domineering. Under the sneering and contemptuous stares, she said this. Everyone was dumbfounded. How could she say this in the presence of these princes and princesses? This was outrageous. She just didn't take them seriously. Xiao Yefeng sneered, we know what Qi Ling is capable of, but as for you two, I'm afraid you're even weaker than Qi Ling. You said you would crush us with the three of you. I've never seen a man as presumptuous as you. Young Luo Feng cast an unconcerned glance at Xiao Yefeng, we'll see. You, Xiao Yefeng pointed at young Luo Feng in anger, and her chest kept heaving, okay, then I'll see what you are capable of in the coming tournament. Did this woman think she was Princess Jinyang? Princess Jinyang was peerlessly talented. If she said these words, it made sense. But who did young Luo Feng think she was? How ridiculous that she dreamed of crushing all the other competitors with just the three of them. It was the funniest joke she had ever heard in her life. At the thought of this, Xiao Yefeng glared at young Luo Feng. She would witness whether the woman could really do what she said or she was just crazy.